I wanted, first of all, to say hello again. I recognize some of the names already, and we're very happy to have you here for our third and final session for this specific webinar. As I mentioned previously, Ein Be'ein was created to help develop the professional community working with autism in Ethiopia. And over the past few weeks, we have learned a lot from your participation in our webinar. And the feedback we're getting through the forms you fill out are very, very helpful. So I want to thank you for that. And invite you also after this this session to please fill out the last form for this webinar. We are looking forward to discussing our next steps in order to continue this journey with you for future events. So we'll be very happy at the end of this session if some of you can open your microphones and talk. That will be very helpful. And I want to take this opportunity to announce that our next webinar will be given by a longtime trained speech language pathologist with many years of experience with working with children with ASD. Further details will be sent in the next few weeks. Now I want to do something that's a little different since we're only a few people here. I would love if you can, whoever's here and feels comfortable, will open their camera and present themselves. Just tell us your name and where you work. This is part of one of our reasons that we're doing this is to try to get a community and for the community of professionals working with autism to know each other. And so I think it's also important that you get to know each other. So whoever feels comfortable is welcome to start and present themselves. Again, what your name and where you work.
Hi, Gannett. Oh, now you got your microphone on. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. Really, it is great. My name is Gannet Negose. I'm working in Adama, 100 kilometers far from Addis, and I'm leading the Bethel Autism Center. And for the last 10 years, so I know Renana.
It's great to see
Thank
you
you so
again.
much.
It's great to see you again.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you. And we have about 40 children in our center. They are diagnosed ASD. So this program is very much helpful for us. Really, it's very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gannett, for being the brave one and opening your camera. You're welcome to keep it open if you feel comfortable. And it's lovely to see you here again. I'm very, very happy. We met a few years back, and thanks to you, you're one of the people who got me involved in this project. So I'm very, very thankful to you. Anyone else? For those who are coming in now, I asked for people here who want to present themselves, their name and where they work. Of course, it's not mandatory, just if you feel that you want to tell us who you are so we can see and for you to get to know each other. Okay, so that's fine. Moshe, so if so, I think we will start. Okay. So I want to invite you again. And it's really a big pleasure for us for you being here. And we're waiting to hear what you have to say this week about the basic behavioral methods. So thank you again. You're welcome to start.
Did I just mess up the screen?
No, you're fine. You move to the next
I did, but I had a block on something, so help me get back to that screen. I apologize, people. There is that. Okay. Is that okay,
yeah.
Renata? Okay.
No, now you're in view. And we could see the whole thing. So maybe you want to do stop share.
Okay.
So do stop share and now just go in from the beginning. I think that would be the easiest.
Share that. How's that?
This is great.
All right, now wait, I have to do. I'm so sorry, people, for being technologically handicapped.
That is fine. We're all learning every day. That's the way of life.
And now I do not see the screen. Oh, there's that.
Yeah, for us we see that
So,
great. We see the
okay.
PowerPoint.
All right, the difficulty now I have, Renana, is I'm
Yeah.
trying to see if I can. I have. Let's see if I can move this. I can move that. I think I have solved my problem. Still look okay?
Yeah, great,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Hi. I'm glad to be here again. We're going to start talking today about a combination of treatment methods and educational methods. Renan and I had long talks about how to address the behavioral challenges that children with autism frequently have, and came to the conclusion that discussing some of the intervention models would address some, not all, of the behavioral challenges that kids with ASD have. And so we're going to approach it from that direction. One of the reasons that I thought focusing exclusively on behavioral interventions, my hesitance about that is that it's so highly individualized. We can talk in generalities, but we can't. It's difficult to apply it to the specific of the child that you might be working with. So the other thing we're going to do is towards the end, we're going to like to open up the discussion with people, and I'm going to the springboard for that discussion I'm going to ask you now is, if you had a magic wand, if you could make believe, how would you proceed to help children in Ethiopia with ASD? Now, obviously, we would make it disappear. It's not that magic of a wand. This is just springboard for discussion. So we're going to review the 5 common interventions, most common educational methodological, methods of intervention, the models for children. It's very challenging to teach them. Those of you who are professionals know that these kids present great challenges. And as we said earlier, when you have met a child with autism, you've met a child with autism. Therefore, the interventions have to be individualized. I think that there's pretty much a universal acceptance of that. The structure of the classroom really helps children learn what expectations there are. And it gives them the opportunity to meet those expectations. So much of what education is based on is engaging the student into an activity that's going to help them learn a task or a skill. And obviously, these kinds of expectations can be very hard for kids with autism to accomplish. We're going to briefly review these 5 intervention models. The TEACH program, which stands for the Treatment and Education of Autistic and Communication Handicapped Children. The DIR floor time model, which we'll talk about in more detail. The PECS, the picture exchange system, applied behavior analysis, and the social stories model. What all of these things have in common is that they are individualized and they need consistency over time. We're dealing with children, as you know, who frequently struggle with learning. And it takes them longer to learn things that some children just learn spontaneously. So providing them lots and lots of repetition over time is critical. And of course, that requires for the caregivers, for the teachers, for the staff, for the professionals, an unusual amount of patience. And by the way, just to recall, one of my favorite topics is, as much as it demands of you as a professional to have that patience and to maintain that awareness of the challenges these kids have, think about how much more so that is the case for family members, parents, siblings, extended family. We have a very hard time, I think, really coming to that full awareness. So let's go to the TEACH model. The treatment and education of autistic and communications handicapped children. It emphasizes visual supports. We're going to see that similarity of visual supports in the PECS system that we're going to talk about in a little while. It was developed in America at the University of North Carolina in the 1970s. It involves organizing the physical environment with visual cues, schedules, pictures, words, depending on the level of skill of the child, to help the child learn what is expected of them throughout the day. It's routinized. We want the child to have more or less a similar feel every day as to what the expectations are. And we want them, one of the things I was thinking about is what all of us like to know is not only what are we doing now, but what are we doing next? Renana said the next presentation she hopes to bring is a speech and language therapist. Right? You want to know, it's a normal thing. We want to know what's happening next. For kids on the spectrum, having that sense of what's coming next can be very, very valuable. And it can also help reduce anxiety. There's a common issue of anxiety with these kids for a variety of reasons. But we are trying to get them accommodated to the schedule that we have for them. And that schedule could include what skills, what classwork, what homework, or not homework, but classwork and assignments that they're going to have. It's helpful because it's personalized. As we said before, everything is personalized. The visual aids are important. Remember, for those of you who have an history teaching typically developing kids, what we do is we want them to hear it, we want them to see it, and we frequently want them to do it with their hands. So we're teaching them through more than one of the sensory inputs that they get. This model capitalizes on that. It helps that. It uses that. It emphasizes things like daily living skills. Sometimes, depending on the program, activities of daily living, like now first we're going to brush our teeth, and then we're going to wash our face, and then we're going to brush our hair. And in classrooms that I've seen with this model, they will take the child or children and say, okay, pick up your toothbrush, put the toothpaste on. They may have pictures for each one of those tasks, and they will guide the child through all of these skills that we want them to learn. It is relatively replicable. You can the families can learn this to do at home. It takes some time to set up. Again, and the fact that everything's individual, as all these programs that we're going to talk about are individualized, and thus it can be very time consuming. And the challenge always is, how do we generalize the skills that we're teaching to settings that don't have the same structure? That's always a tough one. It's the nature of work with kids. That's very, oh, I forgot to mention, I'll mention now, this is the briefest of overview of all these things. This is not a training in any one of them. I'm not saying or implying in any way that after we review these, you're going to be all set. If you're interested, all of these things are available online to learn about, and I'll talk about more each of them as we come up to them. The TEACH program works well with kids who have kind of a medium level of impairment. Many of them who can read to some extent can benefit from this because you can use words. But for kids whose reading is challenged, you could use pictures, as I said before, and that will work. The floor time model was developed by Dr. Stanley Greenspan and Dr. Serena Wider in the 1980s. DIR, as you can see, is the Developmental Individual Differences Relationship-Based Program. It focuses on engaging with the child at their level, whether it's physically or emotionally. We're trying to create a nurturing environment that fosters learning, fosters communication. We follow the child's leads, and this is a very, very distinct difference in the floor time model from many of the other models. In the floor time model, very frequently, the child is in charge, the child leads. And what we do is we mimic the child. We try to engage the child where the child is at. The other models that we're talking about generally, they all these models try to meet the child where the child is at. The difference with the floor time model is that we follow the child's lead instead of, as I mentioned in the first model, the teach model, instead of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is say good morning, and then we're going to greet our friends, and then we're going to go brush our teeth, and all these things. That's a top-down model where the teachers set what's going to happen. The floor time model is not that. It is a model that really allows the child to lead, so to speak. What we're trying to develop is what's called in floor time circles of communication. There was a presentation some years ago by Dr. Yael Bruch on floor time. Was anybody here in that presentation? Can you let us know? Hand wave or something if you were there. I think she actually, did she not travel to Ethiopia for this, or was it online?
Yes, she traveled to Ethiopia. I think it was like a 3-day seminar.
Huh? So it was really
Mm-hmm.
some detail. Anybody familiar with that? Maybe not. Okay.
It was a few years back, so I don't know if
Right.
anyone here participated.
So typically what you might see with floor time is, one of the reasons it's called floor time is because children tend to play on the floor. So we will get on the floor with them in floor time. And if a child displays interest in building something with the blocks, the staff member, the caregiver will start building alongside of them, and they'll observe the child's actions and expressions, and they'll begin to imitate them and try to respond to the child's cues. Or if the child is playing with, typically, you might see a child playing with a toy truck or a toy car. And instead of using it, as we talked about last time, in an imaginary way, like it's a real truck or a real car, they may just like look at one of the wheels and visually stimulate their visual stuff just by spinning it over and over, or using it in a way that's kind of inconsistent. That's not really what it's made to be used for. And what we might do is sit with them, do what they're doing, and then slowly see if we can guide the child, guide the child into using the toy car, the toy truck for what it's made for, which is making pretend, the room that we see typically developing kids do with cars and trucks, making believe that they're actual cars and trucks. So we try to do that with them. and engage with them. They lead, we follow, engage, and move on. The pros of the floor time model are that they again, they're very individualized. They the child leads, we follow. It strives to create an emotional connection. Remember that we've talked about with ASD children that sense of social reciprocity, the give and take, the creating of relationship is something that they frequently struggle with. And this is a way to try to overcome that delay. It keeps there's an active involvement from the caregiver. Like all of these models, they're time intensive, they're less structured, and that can be a challenge, and we'll see that in a couple, when we talk about ABA in particular, which is highly structured. It is, give me a second. It takes a certain amount of expertise and learning to use this model. And as with all of these models, depending on the child's responsiveness, depending on the consistency of the intervention, the outcomes might be different. The other con for me is an assumption that kids, particularly lower functioning kids, have a desire to interact the way a typically developing child has a desire to interact. For those of you who've gotten down on the floor and played with a typically developing child, as I suspect all of us have done, they're usually very happy to have someone to play with, and they have a natural sense of reciprocity that I'm not sure children on the spectrum typically have. We're trying to build that, but I think that floor time may assume that can be cultivated, and I personally am not sure that is how likely that cultivation will take root. But that's my kind of personal opinion. The PECS, the picture exchange communication system, is, in my belief, the easiest thing to implement. And I would encourage certainly the educators, but also the professionals, to spend some time looking at the PECS model, because it's relatively simply to learn, it's relatively simply to do, and it is modeled particularly for children who are lower functioning by using pictures. It was invented in the 1990s by Bondi and Frost. It is targeted, as I said, to children with limited or no verbal skills to use pictures or symbols. It's a 6-phase system, starting with the most simple picture exchanges and progressing to more complex sentence structures. An example for this is, because it's an exchange system, what we're trying to teach the child is that communication, to build in that reciprocity of communication. And the way we do that is by making contingencies. Contingencies, we'll talk about that more with the in the ABA model. Contingencies are those things that will say, if you want a snack, you have to bring me a picture of the snack that you want before you get it. Now, that doesn't mean that we are rigid and we don't allow that. And there's anything, we want to engage the child. So the first time, with using the snack example, the first time in the beginning of the school year that it's snack time, we may give the child a snack, and then we may put the picture down next to the child. And then we may say, oh, you want a snack? Here's a snack. And then we'll take the picture. We may do hand over hand. We may put the picture in the hand of the child and facilitate the child's handing us that picture so that they begin to associate the giving of the picture with the receiving of the snack. And then build on that, again, slowly as the child can. It has a good track record. It's widely used. And as I said earlier, I would recommend it highly because it's relatively straightforward to listen to learn. It enhances communication for nonverbal children. It reduces frustration for them because it gives them a pathway to communicate their wants and needs. It can be used at home, at school, in therapy. It's very, very adaptable. And again, what we're trying to do is promote independence and communication skills. Like all of these models, it requires a great deal of practice and consistency. Some children may take a fair amount of time before they get it. And it frequently doesn't target the broader range of developmental skills, but it's a good start. Applied behavior analysis, ABA, has its roots in the work of B.F. Skinner in the, I think it was the 50s and 60s. It became widely recognized and applied throughout the last half of the last century. It's very structured. It's very evidence-based. It is it very systematically applies techniques to improve very specific skills and behaviors, whether we're trying to increase the behavior or whether we're trying to decrease behavior. We might want to increase the behavior of asking for what you want or compliance. Last week, we talked about the child who needed to learn how to tolerate his finger being stuck so he could get his blood glucose, his blood sugar measured so they knew how much insulin to give him because he had diabetes. So we wanted to increase his compliance. At the same time, we wanted to decrease his aggressiveness that happened when he would get his finger stuck. He became very, very aggressive because he didn't want to get his finger stuck, which I think we all understand. But for a child who doesn't have a lot of skill to be able to communicate that effectively, it is sometimes the only thing they know how to do is be aggressive or scream, yell, avoid. I've said before that ABA is a form. It's the science of behavior modification. Another common parenting or professional skill that virtually all of us have gone through is teaching a child how to use the toilet. when the first time that we take a child and we sit them on the toilet or on a little child potty chair, the first time they ever do it, generally our response is to applaud and to praise and to reinforce emotionally, because we want to see that behavior repeated. We want them to learn how to sit on the toilet because we don't want to have to clean up their mess. We're very motivated for them to learn this. The first time we do it, we tend to have a huge response. But after a while, if all the child does is sit on the toilet and they don't do anything, we will still be positive, but we may begin to withhold some of the robust response until they either sit longer or actually put what we want them to put in the toilet. The first time they do that, the first time they successfully use the toilet, again, we explode with reinforcement. We're so proud of you. That's so great. We clap, we sing, we may call grandma on the phone and brag about how wonderful that is. But by the time the child's been doing that reliably for some weeks or months, we're not celebrating every time the child uses the toilet. We say good job, well done, something, but we begin to tone that down. ABA takes that kind of logical, intuitive kind of model and uses it quite scientifically. I had the privilege of working with the psychologist who was the editor of the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis for some 15, he was the editor for some 15 years, something like that. His name is Wayne Fisher. You can look him up. He was really one of the major forces in the West in terms of teaching ABA and researching ABA. And I was on a team that worked with him for many, many years in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm very comfortable with ABA. I know what it is. I am not an approved ABA. I'm not a certified ABA guy, but I'm very comfortable with it. So of all the models that we're talking about, this is the one that I personally have the most experience with. And I think it has a great deal of strengths. I think there are limitations. We'll talk about that. Give me a second here. So this can be, ABA can be used for children on different levels of the spectrum, from very low functioning to even higher functioning children. And if you want to entertain yourself, there's a wonderful article that was written maybe 10 years ago in the New York Times. And I think the title of it is something like What I Learned from Shamu. Shamu is a killer shark, or killer whale, I think they're called, a killer whale, not shark. They're actually not killers, but they're called killer whales. And they're used in these large aquariums. And they are trained to do tricks. You've probably seen videos of that where the dolphins or the killer whale kind of jumps up and spins around and gets a treat and all those kinds of things. And this woman was doing an article on Shamu for the New York Times, and she thought that she could take what she was learning about applied behavior analysis, because that's how they teach Shamu to jump through the hoop. All it is a system of demands and rewards, and she realized that she could use the same skills of demands and rewards to get her husband to comply with the things that she wanted him to do, like put his dirty laundry in the laundry hamper, or to clean up the kitchen after he was done. And what was so fun about this article, if you choose to look it up, it's online, it's easily found, is that he said to her, "You're using that applied behavior analysis Shamu stuff on me, aren't you?" And she said, "Yes, I am." And his response was, "Okay." And over time, it worked. He was picking up his laundry, he was cleaning up the kitchen. So, he was a typically developing, high functioning adult man. So ABA can be applied really across the board. It is very, very strongly evidence-based. It is, as I said, when I said the science of behavior modification, I meant it literally. It is a science. I remember one of my behavior analyst colleagues once, I worked in a multidisciplinary setting with physicians and psychiatrists and ABA and lots of people. And the psychiatrists would, with some frequency, try a medication, because that's what psychiatrists tend to do, is they manage medications, and assess as to whether it was working or not. And if it didn't work, they would try a different medication, or they would change the dosage. And the psychologist, the ABA psychologist, was impolitely critical of that methodology. He said, "We're the scientists. We record everything that happens." And classic ABA takes a lot of data. It really records with great detail what the prompt is and what the response is. If the response is something that they want to see, or the response is something that they don't want to see, consistent with the goal, not consistent with the goal. So it is very scientific. It's very clear. It's very measurable. They can measure things with very great detail, in very great detail. As I said before, it works across all skill types, from people who are not verbal to people who are very, very highly verbal. It needs a lot of training to implement. Learning to be an ABA practitioner takes really some years of professional training, and that is not readily available everywhere. Again, when I was living in the United States, the joke was, if you want to have a really, really good career, get your ABA certification, because it's like a license to print money, we used to say, because everybody wants it and you can charge a lot of money for it. It has to be done consistently. Again, for a lot of the behaviors you're trying to target for our populations, it's very hard for them to learn. So it takes a great deal of time, again, consistency, and they're generalizing the responses, the positive responses, can be difficult. It can be done, but again, it requires a great deal of time. So that's ABA. As I'm assuming everyone here has been with our previous discussions, I will remind you at any time, if you have questions, you can put something in the chat box, and I'm happy to entertain questions. The last model we're going to talk about is the social stories model, developed by Carol Gray in the early 1990s. And its beauty is in its simplicity. We create personalized, again, individualized stories to teach social rules and expectations. You will recall that social cueing, understanding what the rules of social engagement are, is challenging for a lot of kids on the spectrum. And this is a model that really teaches that on a very individualized basis. We do have an expectation that the children that we're going to use this with have some language skills. They don't have to have sophisticated language skills, but it's a story. So we do want to have some language skills. Children overwhelmingly love to have stories read to them, as any of us know. And it can often be combined with other visuals. So a great example of this is if a certain child is having a difficult time taking turns, which is social behavior, on the playground, for example, we might compose a story for that child. We could even make it a project where, as we're composing it, we could have the child color on the page or choose what things to put on the page. And then we could have the following kind of example, where the storyline is on page 1. We say to the child, at recess, I like to play on the slide, which is true for most children. And then we go to page 2. And we say to the child, sometimes other children want to use the slide too. And we might have a picture on that page of other children wanting to, lining up on the slide. These do not have to be sophisticated pictures. They can be stick figures. It can be very, very simple. And then on page 3, we take turns so everyone gets a chance. And then on page 4, we're setting our expectations of the child. I wait in line quietly and keep my hands to myself. Most of us, in experiencing children who are waiting their turn to play, have seen that waiting quietly can be very difficult, and keeping their hands to themselves can also be very difficult. These are the kinds of social expectations we want children to learn. And then on page 5, we could show the child going down the slide. When it's my turn, I can go down the slide. And page 6, after I slide, I go to the back of the line if I want another turn. Again, we're expressing our expectations of the child in the story. And then the last page, we want to reinforce these behaviors. Taking turns is fun, and it helps everyone have a good time. And that's the story. We've set our expectations. We've made it visual because we have pictures on every page, and that can be used to teach the child how to conduct themselves on the playground. It's clear, it's direct, it makes the expectations known. It's customizable. It's not this, unlike ABA, this is not complex. It can be used anywhere and everywhere. Parents can apply it at home for whatever expectation they have. It could be around toileting. It could be around bedtime, the kinds of activities that we have expectations of children, and we want them to understand those expectations. It can be useful for children who have some language comprehension. It takes a little bit of time to write, but I don't think that's a terrible con. And it tends to focus on social behavior. But yeah, that's so much of what the goal is. I don't know that that's a big con either. Each model that we've discussed has its strengths and its limitations. We need to be prescriptive to make sure that the interventions that we're using with our kids fit their needs. We want to have a good understanding as to what the challenges of the child are, so that we can intervene appropriately. If a child, for example, if a child is aggressive and they have a history of aggression towards other children or adults, calmly sitting with the child and saying, no, that's not the way we behave, may be an inadequate intervention. We may need to do something else. And that also needs to be thought through and individualized. So we have to match what we do with the needs and the challenges of the child. Consistency, individualization, time are critical, as we've discussed. And having that consistency across domain is what we like to say, from, let's say, the classroom to home. We really want to see that, because the more consistency you can have for these kids, the better. So now I'm going to go back to the magic wand. I'm going to talk about, and we're going to ask you to participate with us, and either in the chat box or by opening up your cameras and letting us know. If you had a magic wand, how would you proceed to help children in Ethiopia with autism spectrum disorders? And when I say that, I'm going to ask you to think maybe about anything macro, like what would you do to change what's happening on a macro scale? Or you could think about one individual child. What could you do for this one child that you're struggling with, that you're feeling a challenge with, if you could wave a magic wand? I'm happy to go first. I've learned a bit. I've done a fair amount of research, not enough, on Ethiopia and the challenges there. One of the things that I learned about today that Renata taught me, I did not know this until today, that Ethiopia, as I understand, in their public school system, doesn't have any kind of or not very minimal special education system or track. Kids with special needs don't have separate classes, separate curriculum, and maybe most importantly, a separate budget from the government. And as I was researching, I found out that in Europe and in America, on the low end, the amount of public money per child that is given to children with special needs in public school classrooms, the budget is about 8,000 United States dollars per child. And my thought was that Ethiopia's budget is, I don't know that they have a budget. And if I had a magic wand, it would be for Ethiopia to be able to spend 10%, $800 US dollars per Ethiopian child. There have to be, again, Renata and I were talking about this morning, there have to be about 500,000 children or people in Ethiopia who are coping with autistic spectrum disorders. If the government could spend that kind of money on teaching, training, I think that would be wonderful. That's my magic wand wish. What's yours?
Moshe, I just want to correct you. We spoke that they're not 500,000, but 2.5 million
I
children.
would get 2.5 million children. I don't
Yes.
know where I got that 500,000 from. It was in my head. Thank you for the correction.
Sorry. Yes. So maybe just repeat the last that you were asking them, whoever's here, if you can share with us what is your wish for children with autism in Ethiopia.
Who would like to go? You don't have to be so polite. You can jump in.
Hi, I would like to go. My name is Leah, and I work at NIA Foundation, Joy Center for Autism. And I am also a parent to a child on the spectrum. So, so if I had magic wand, I would want to ensure that every child has access to early screening and diagnosis, and then followed with comprehensive support regarding it could be healthcare, education, family support, and things like that. And then further, I would look into inclusive education, like you said, and then, but very most important, the acceptance and the awareness within the community. I would like to change things in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
That's a lovely thought. We join you with that. Are there some things in the chat box?
At this point, no.
Oh, I thought I saw something that there was. Okay.
Nothing that's relevant
Okay.
to what you asked. Does anyone else want to share? I can share that I think my wish is that that I think one of the ways to fulfill what Leah was talking about, also about the early screening and interventions, and also about the community awareness, is that that there will become a professional organization that works together. That all of you guys and more will come together, work together, and I think that's a big. It will create a bigger power to change the reality that there is right now. And as I said before, I think this is one of our Ein Be'ein's goal, is to really help create this community with you. So that's my wish. I see now that there are more things in the chat box. So Judith is saying, if I had a magic wand, educational interventions put in the curriculum as a part and partial to every school, and created awareness.
Amen.
That's amazing. And Getenet. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this correctly, so I apologize. Hey, wow, it is amazing training session. I like it. I learned so many things. Please, we will waiting for the next session. By the way, it's very important. However, we need the last 3 sessions, PowerPoint or video. No problem. I will send it along. Thank you very much. Judith also says, I would have created great support groups or peer groups to people who are affected.
Can I speak to that, Renata?
Sure, of course.
One of the easy things that can be done, I believe, in Ethiopia is for parents and maybe professionals also to create their own support networks. I'm a very, very big believer in the importance of not having people feel alone and isolated with their challenges. No one understands what you are going through if you have a child with autism better than another parent of a child with autism. I know that in the population we're talking with here, guessing most of you are in Addis, and I'm guessing that most of you have the benefit of things like computers and smartphones and things like that, which is wonderful. Certainly in the large metropolitan areas where people are more connected electronically, creating groups and connections and supports should be relatively easy. I'd be very interested to know what my guess is things have spontaneously happened, but I think that having formal networks, buddy systems, welcoming someone new into the community. This is the kind of community that a lot of people don't want to be a part of, but sometimes we don't have the choice about what groups we're a part of. This is what happens. We don't have a good understanding of why children get autism. That's a whole different discussion. But if you have a child with autism, you know it. And even if you don't have the words for it, and having another person who has walked down that path is critically important and critically valuable. That doesn't take training. It doesn't take any special expertise. It just takes someone to say, hey, let's get together. Let's pick a time. Let's talk about what's going on. And I really encourage you guys, to the extent that you've done that, keep it up, expand it, advertise it, make sure that your colleagues, professional colleagues, know about it and reinforce to them how beneficial it is to the families.
Thank you, Moshe. I stand behind everything you say. We have a few more comments here. So George Yesh says, I wish Ethiopian Health Ministry and Educational Ministry would acknowledge ASD and have a system to support and create all integrated system. George, I could say we agree completely. That's part of what we are working on as well. And we really, really hope that creating this awareness and creating these professional community will help bring more awareness to the government. Hopefully, as Moshe, I think, also said in the past, if there are any governmental workers here that could be of help, please reach out to us. This is a very big dream of ours that I wish, and I could say that I know here in Israel that really the government does take a big part in helping children and families with ASD, and it's very, very important. So if there's anything we could do, please let us know as well. Wanos Mesfin says, if I had a magic wand, I would transform our community's attitude and awareness regarding ASD and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Additionally, I would advocate for the elimination of pseudo science and non-evidence-based practice in favor of approaches grounded in rigorous scientific research. I from reading some of the things that and hearing from when I was in Ethiopia many years back, of some of the things really that people do. I won't say specifically to try to help ASD specifically, but in general, I understand what you're talking about, and I'm sure I don't know a lot. I'm sure you know many more stories, and I completely agree that if that's why I think I decided to focus on professionals to help create this evidence-based practice, and hopefully train more and more professionals to work with this community. We're running out of time, so I'm going to go through this quicker. Lulu, affordable and quality therapy for all. Someone here that's with a number, so I don't know who it is, but thank you for that. Thank you very much, which was a great time and supportive training. Hopefully we will catch up with other training related with ASD. Genit says, if I had a magic wand, I would focus on a comprehensive approach that addresses autistic children's unique needs and promotes inclusion and support within society. Amazing. Judith says, I took a class at ETC, Children with Special Needs, and learned that students at school can be taught on special needs and at early age to learn have a mission work, involved in mission work to assist and families to give respite and special needs to special needs families. And I think that is it for the wand question, for the magic wand question. So we're heading, if there's anyone else that wants to write specifically about the magic wand, you're more than welcome. So first of all, I want to thank Moshe again. Thank you so much for everything for the past 3 lectures. I could say that I know I learned a lot, as I said, from you, from everyone participating, and I hope you did as well. And I want to thank you all, even the ones that were here all along, thank you, and the ones that joined for the first time today. I mentioned this in the beginning, and I'm saying it now. We're hoping that our next webinar, that I'll send the details in the future, will be held by a speech language pathologist, which is something that I see a lot of you asked for in the feedback questionnaire. So hopefully we'll be able to give that to you. I posted here also the link to the questionnaire for this session. So I'm asking whoever was here to please fill it out. It helps us understand better what your needs are. And thank you very much, anyone who wrote and spoke. We really appreciate it. And we're hoping to see you in our next webinar that I will send you details to in the next few weeks. Moshe, anything to add?
I thank everyone for coming and for their participation. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. We'll hopefully see you soon. Goodbye.